here goofing around a little bit in our bushcraft area behind the house, and with the storms and the wind and the ice, we have definitely an abundance of tulip poplar trees around here. So the dead limbs have been falling, and I was asked recently a little question about using cedar bark and getting that lit with the ferro rod, so thought I'd show you real quick how to use tulip poplar bark, because it's kind of a similar way to go about getting it prepared with bark. So this dead limb came down and it's definitely wet. So what you want to do is get that bark off of the limb, and if it's been dead for a while, it'll release from the limb pretty easily. So then you got this, and this is really wet, but we're going to work with it anyways. So in order not to make the video really long, I'm going to show you basically how to start preparing this. So you kind of want to get it and twist it up, get that little bit of outer bark off of it, because you want the middle, you want the inner bark, the more strandy fibrous part. And then once you break it up, as you can see, this is really wet, but wet doesn't mean it won't light. So you got to just keep working it, pulling it apart till you're trying to make a bunch of hairs, a bunch of strands. Just twist it and roll it and just get it broke up. And then just keep at that process, keep pulling it apart. And after a while, you know, take your time. It's not something that's going to happen real quick, but this kind of bark will give you a nice tinder option. So just keep working it, and then eventually, you know, you're going to get it pulled out, and you're going to have a bunch of fine hairs. So I did a little bit earlier and pulled it out, and being that it was so wet, I just left it laying on the wood and let the air travel through it a little bit. But you could stick it in your pocket or inside your coat close to your body and help it dry out a little bit. But then you can pull it a little bit more once it's kind of dry, and you're going to end up with this. And this is just like a grass bird's nest, basically. So it gives you a nice good tinder when there's no grass, because it's covered by snow, or the ground it's been raining or what have you. So we'll see how this wants to light. It may be a little wet, and I'm expecting that it will be. So I'll just bring it over here. And then the other thing about this, you know, pull it apart, get it lofty so that air can travel through it. Because without the air, the fire won't go. You know, heat, air, and flame. So we'll just give this a shot like it is. Like you normally would do with a bird's nest or something, and we'll see if it goes. Now it's that part took off there, so it got dry enough, and it was as wet as that other stuff I was working on. So there you go. That's how to work with bark for a tinder. Let's try something real quick here for kicks. Okay, well, what I've got here now is some of that bark that I just took off of the little limb, and I processed it up a little bit. It could probably go a little more, but just for the sake of the demonstration here, this stuff is really wet. So you can scrape off, you know, a pile of your ferrocerium rod right into a corner or something, and then light that material It's one way to get it lit, which is kind of hard on your ferrocerium rod by grinding a bunch of it off. If you had a ferrocerium rod magnesium block combination, you could put the magnesium in there and then light that. That's one way to get it going. What I like to do is just continue striking on it with the rod down in the material, which is the process that I like to use for either bark like this or wood shavings or whatever, because eventually that spark's going to make enough heat to cause that stuff to, the material to dry out, and then it doesn't really have any choice but to burn. But then you gotta kind of work the material, being it's so wet, spread it out, let the flames try to get through it. So we're going to give it a try here and see how it goes. Just for an example, the first pile that I lit had a chance to dry in the air for about a half an hour, so it lit pretty well. So this here is really wet, so let's see how it does. So that much striking on that stuff that had a chance to dry in the air, and it was gone. So like I said, what I kind of like to do is just place the rod in there and just keep striking on it till I get enough heat and have kind of dried it out to get it to light. It's trying, but it's real wet. There you go. And you have to just kind of work with that bark, even though it's wet. Get enough air and enough heat in there, and that will get going. And you can light your other tinder. Well, there you go, guys. Give that a try. Wet or not, get enough heat. It doesn't have any choice but to burn. It's gonna go. There you go. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.